This is a 9-chunk build centered around a uranium bedrock deposit which will take a single piece of uranium bedrock ore and convert it into 2 stacks of uranium powder, which will be further processed using a silex to make uranium fuel. So keep a lookout for the timestamps, and without any further ado, let's get straight into this video. Before getting into the build itself, let's quickly take a look on the methods that you can use in order to locate bedrock ores in the first place. The very first method is using the survey scanner, and it is crafted using the following recipe as you can see on your screen. The second method is using the neutrino lens, but this takes star metal, which in turn takes satinite, so it's gonna be a while before you can get to it. Now using the survey scanner is also very simple. You just walk to a chunk and you right click on the floor and it will show you the bedrock ore which is present in that chunk. Also remember that bedrock ore will always be in the middle of the chunk, so placing the mining drill will be simple if you do remember that. Now using the neutrino lens takes some setup because you need to link it to a depth resource scanning satellite, then you need to send that satellite into orbit, and then you need to apply the neutrino lens to any helmet using the armor modification table. It will show you all of the chunks which have bedrock ores in them, but to see the type of bedrock ore present, you will still need to use the survey scanner. So for this build, we only need a single piece of, or basically a single chunk of uranium bedrock ore. Now another thing is that you can use coated red copper cable in order to power all of the machines. So one layout is using the cables wherever they are needed, or second layout is you can make the entire chunk except the borders of coated red copper cable. This will make your life a lot simpler as any machine placed on them will be powered. So let's start by building this, and I have the conveyor line coming in from the large mining drill. So first we are going to place a conveyor inserter going into a centrifuge. Now from the centrifuge we are going to get a conveyor ejector out, and then we go like this using the conveyor belts, and using the screwdriver you can have this neat looking pattern like this, and then we take another conveyor inserter, and here we are going to place our first ore acidizer. So make sure that this port is on the front side like this. Coming out from the ore acidizer, take out 3 conveyor belts, the middle one like this, and now we are gonna place down a conveyor splitter right here. So from this conveyor splitter, come out by 1 and then come out by 6 and turn right here. So now from this ore acidizer, we are gonna have 2 more centrifuges. So here I'm gonna place some conveyor inserters and just rearrange the conveyor belts a little bit and place down 2 more centrifuge. Coming out from the centrifuge is going to be the conveyor ejector, and now from this conveyor ejector I'm gonna place an inserter going into 2 ore acidizers. Now once again, do remember to make sure that the port is on the front side like this. It's gonna make connecting all of the fluid pipes a lot easier when you are done with this whole build. So from the back side of the ore acidizer, we are gonna get our output. Now you can see that we have 4 remaining blocks here. In these 4 blocks, place down 2 conveyor splitters touching each other like this. In the first one, we are gonna have a conveyor belt going in, and so or the same we are gonna do for the second one. So now we have 4 outputs from 2 ore acidizers. For these 4 outputs, we are gonna place down 4 centrifuge and 4 inserters going into them like this. And make sure to stand on the floor while placing this, because if there is a height mismatch, then that changes the orientation of the inserter. Now coming out from the centrifuges will be the conveyor ejectors. And for these 4 conveyor ejectors, on the first one, place down 5 pieces of conveyor lift, and leaving 1 block gap, place down another 5 tall conveyor chain lift. Now on the middle block, we are gonna connect it like this. So basically 2 centrifuges are gonna get connected into a single line, and I'm gonna do the same here. By the way, do see that I forgot to add a conveyor belt here. This is important. Please do add a conveyor belt going into the conveyor lift. I'm going to correct this mistake later on in the video. So for now, just place two pieces of shredder like this with conveyor inserters going into them. So that's how it's gonna look like. Now to place the ejectors coming from the bottom of the shredder, you will need to dig down and basically stand beneath the shredder so that the ejector is coming straight down like this. And gonna replace all of the copper cable again. And finally, coming out from the ejector, going into the front side, place down the conveyor chute. So you can place it on the side if you want to deposit all of the powder and make it into ingots, which is something that I have done here. But for now, we are going to take it further into the silex, so that is why I have placed it on the front side. Now to test this design out, whether it is working properly or not, I'm going to place down, or I'm going to connect the output of both of these shredders going into a single inserter and then going into a crate. Time to place down all of the upgrades. So the very first centrifuge will take speed 1 and power saving 3. Ore acidizer, the very first one, will take speed 2, power saving 3. Then speed 2 and power saving 3 will also be placed in the two centrifuges, and yeah, the ore acidizers and the remaining 4 centrifuges will take speed 3 and power saving 3. So that's how you are going to place down all of the upgrades. And to connect the ore acidizers with power, just take a cable from the floor and connect it to the very top like this. The benefit of doing this is that there is a nice walking area that yeah, with which you can access your whole factory. Now for the shredders, take cables from the sides and connect them like this. So once again, you are not hampering any walking area. Now in these shredders, we are gonna have dash blades because they have infinite durability. The very first ore acidizer will take in hydrogen peroxide. So for now, I'm going to use an infinite barrel, as I'm going to show you the setup later on in the video on how you can do it with chemical plants. As for the other two acidizers, they are gonna take sulfuric acid. So I'm gonna combine them both, and here we are gonna have another infinite barrel of sulfuric acid. There we go. So that's all of the setup done. Now the last thing remaining is to connect power. If I turn this on, basically each and every machinery in this entire power plant will be powered now. So to test this build out now, I'm going to drop a single piece of uranium bedrock ore on this conveyor line, and it will be processed first in this centrifuge, and from there it will go ahead into the acidizers, the stage 2 centrifuge, stage 2 acidizers, and stage 3 centrifuge. And finally, once the entire process is done, we should end up with a total of 2 stacks of uranium powder. As you can see here, we are missing 32. That's because I forgot to place a conveyor belt right here. So basically, some uranium ore is actually stuck in the centrifuge, and once you connect it like this, then we should end up with a total of 2 stacks of uranium powder like this. Now processing this uranium powder ahead, like how you want to do it, is actually your choice. So this is what I have done here. This is the very same setup that I showed you before, a single large mining drill going into 2 processing plants, and this in total is a 9 chunk build. And here, as you can see, I have divided the entire line into 2 parts, and even this is like a lot, as the system will back up over time. Now in the middle, we are producing the hydrogen peroxide, which is being stored in a buffer, and from this buffer it is being supplied to the ore acidizers and all of the silex. And on the other side, we are also producing hydrogen peroxide, but this time it is going in an industrial mixer where it is being mixed with sulfur to give us sulfuric acid inside this buffer tank, from where we are supplying it to the remaining 4 ore acidizers and also the large mining drill, as it requires the sulfuric acid to process uranium bedrock ore. And the entire base, the entire power plant is connected with a single power cable, like on the floor. So for the outputs, I have them coming in the front side as I showed you in the earlier setup, and from there, using conveyor lifts, it goes in an inserter which inserts all of the uranium powder in a silex where it is processed, and the output comes out from the middle basically. So by the way, if you didn't know this, in a silex, this very middle block on the bottom is an output block. So here you can place a hopper or basically a conveyor ejector to get the output. Now I'm gonna show you this whole thing in action. So I'm going to turn on the large mining drill here. And by the way, make sure to place a conveyor between the ejector and the splitter coming from the large mining drill. Otherwise, it won't really work perfectly. The splitter won't work perfectly. So here you can see all of the uranium powder which comes out from the shredder is deposited into the silex, which then converts it into uranium-238 and uranium-235, which is grabbed using the conveyor grabber, and using 3 pieces of automatic crafting table, I am making uranium fuel billets which are deposited in the mass storage unit right here. So yeah, basically that's that. Now before I actually end this video, once again, the silex in the middle bottom block is an output. You can also get rid of all of the silexes and use the gas centrifuge instead. And for infinite sulfur, you can use the bedrock copper or bedrock iron ore. So yeah, that was actually it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, do smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel. Peace out and stay safe.